Welcome to Your Next Best Step with Brek Cockrell, the locker room for purpose-driven leaders. This is where we slow down, reflect, and take our next best steps through real stories, practical strategies, and rooted leadership wisdom. Remember, the best leaders need a coach in their corner.
Well, welcome to the locker room. Hey, this is a great opportunity to meet a good friend of mine, Nick Kennedy. And Nick, man, it is great to have you in the Your Next Best Step podcast. Welcome. This is, as I say often, this is the locker room by day. It's my lounge at night, and when the kids are over, it's Pop's Clubhouse. So, man, welcome today.
I need to get a membership to Pop's Clubhouse, man. I like that. That's a
Yeah,
good looking spot. I need to get up there to see you up in Buffalo.
man, would love to have you. That view behind you looks pretty good. Where are you at, Nick?
I'm in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. And that view behind you is partial of the Steamboat Ski Mountain and the Yampa Valley. We have a thing up here. The Yampa Valley is this big valley that kind of runs. It's probably 20 or 30 miles. The Yampa River goes through it, and they call it the Yampa Valley Curse. Once you visit Steamboat, it puts a curse on you, and you have to live up here. You have to come back up here full time. And I'm caught up in the curse, so I got caught up, and we live up here in the mountains. It's September, and this is my favorite time of the year. The aspens will be turning in a couple weeks, and before you know it, we'll have snow on the ground. We'll get our skis on and start going.
Yeah, that's not a fake background. That's the real deal right there.
No, that's the real deal. You might see we've had a family of moose running around out here, and there was a big old black bear, man, probably 600-700 pounds, was running around.
Wow.
My dog was chasing this morning, so he might come by. I might show him to you. That's not AI. If he shows up, that's not AI. That's real.
Oh man. Well, hey Nick, it is glad to have you, man. And I just as a little background for those listening, Nick, you and I became buddies through a group of guys that we affectionately called the Lions. And it is a group that I think this past summer was our 8th trip together.
Wow.
And we met out in Billings at a place we love called Refuge. And shout out to Refuge and Brian Carpenter and all the good dudes who make that space and that place just really special. But I'll never forget, it was the Thursday night. Everybody was just coming in, and we just were kind of going around, and I had not met you before. And so, man, we just sit down, we started talking around the fire pit. And I asked you, I said, Nick, what do you do for a living? And you said, I coach. I do executive coaching. I'm like, what? I said, I've been thinking about doing executive coaching. I said, are you like certified or like anything with anybody? And you go, well, I don't know that I'm certified, but I've worked through John Townsend, all of his stuff. And I'm like, what? I said, I'm thinking about doing the Townsend Institute.
Yeah.
So it was
small world, man.
That meeting in Billings was God ordained. And man, I've enjoyed so much building a friendship and a relationship with you since then. Why don't you just share a little bit about what you currently do, and then we'll just kind of follow the breadcrumbs as we go down and just kind of talk about leadership and the journey that it is for us.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the opportunity, Brek. I always love hanging out with you, and I'll never forget that conversation. I'll never forget our conversation we had in the hot tub. Later the next day. That was one of my favorite conversations with you.
We won't mention that on.
That's in the after hour. If you subscribe, you get that content.
You get that, yeah.
So I grew up as I'm an entrepreneur. I've been part of building and selling 3 different businesses, and in the healthcare space and the aviation space, and over the course of 20 years. I love the idea of entrepreneurship because two reasons. One is I make a really bad employee, and entrepreneurship really celebrates doing innovative things or things that people hadn't thought about before. But two, it also just felt it like fit this need for me. I grew up with a dad in prison for nearly 2 decades, and I had this like chip on my shoulder, and I felt like every other kid out there had the perfect dad who taught him how to tie fishing knots and tie ties and how to ask a girl out and how to change oil on their car, all these things that I didn't know how to do. And I would mess up. I'd show up in these situations, and it would just remind me of that. And I became so obsessed with not feeling stupid
Mm,
that I decided that I was gonna always be in the room the smartest guy. I was always gonna be in the room with the most creative guy, the funniest guy, the whatever. I'd read the room. And boy, what a dumb mistake that is. Now,
mm,
now that I've gotten to where I am, I always want to be the dumbest guy in the room. I always walk in, and one of my core principles is assume that if you meet somebody, that they know something you don't know.
mm,
Whether that's the waiter or the person changing your oil, I still don't change the oil in my car, or a CEO of a business. And um, I was fortunate to have been taught by some pretty successful business leaders about how to go to build a business. And right at the apex, I was selling a business, Breck, and I had been married at that time. I was still married to the same beautiful woman, but I'd been married at the time about 19 years. And she came to me and she said, I love you, Nick, but I don't like you. I don't like the man
mm.
you've become.
Wow.
And boy, it really threw me for a loop because Breck, I had finally made it. Like
Right.
I'd finally found success. I had money, I had power, I had all the things that I wanted that I'd been working to for decades. And she just said, like, you're just not the man that I married.
Mm,
And and I'm so thankful for her courage. I'm not a very timid soul. I'm not easy to tell people for people to tell me hard things about myself, and she did. She had the courage to tell me that, and she wasn't wrong. And I've sold that business and was fortunate to be able to take a few years off, and in doing so, um I was able to really kind of unpack a lot of this identity, this story I told myself in my head. And as I did that, all my buddies were CEOs and entrepreneurs, and I would come to them and say, "Hey, I'm finding this out about myself." And
mhm,
and as I would confess to them when I was finding out about myself, this kind of vulnerable side, 9 out of 10 would kind of look over their shoulder and they'd go, "You too?
mhm.
Like like you deal with that too?" And we all these guys, we were buddies. Like we were tight, and we
Yeah.
were all suffering silently by ourselves.
Mm. Wow.
And that led me on this journey of I thought, man, I was never more lonely than when I was a CEO. I was never more lonely than when I had all the power, because you had all the expectations on you. You didn't know who to ask to for help. Everybody wanted a piece of you, and
Mhm,
and it just led to this lonely spot. And that led to a few conversations, and really the heart of how do I help other leaders. And so now I coach CEOs,
mm.
and I sit in these sacred moments with them, and ostensibly they hire me to fix their business, and I'm happy to do that. And that's never easy, but of fixing the business and fixing your heart, that's the easier of the two. And then we fix the business, and then we work on themselves as an individual. And that's I'm 48 years old. That's my 48 years on this earth that's gotten to this point. And I'm fortunate to bring him up to Steamboat, and we get to ski and golf and hike and
Yeah.
fish and walk in God's nature. That's
Yeah.
my story.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that. I know, I mean, there's so much in that 6 or 7 minutes of your story. You know, one thing I know about you, the thing I love about you, every time we get on a call, we FaceTime, we talk, you know, I'm always asking you about what you're reading. I'm a big believer that leaders are learners, leaders are readers. And when I say readers, I mean not just books, but they're
Mhm.
they're curious,
Yeah.
right? Leaders like, and you said that talking about like you started getting curious about yourself. I mean, that's a tough thing to hear is I don't like you. One of the questions you and I have talked about this, one of the questions that I ask early on with leaders is, are you willing to ask the courageous question,
Mm,
what's it like on the other side of me? Really, dot, dot,
yeah.
dot. What does it
Hey,
look like, sound like, feel like, right?
that's
It's
one of my
so,
rules. Never ask a question you don't want the answer to, right? Because you might hear something you don't want to hear.
but so often there's intel out there that we need to hear.
Yeah.
And man, you needed to hear that.
Yeah.
And you didn't dismiss it, even though it might have hurt in the moment. You didn't defend it, but you sat in it. Like how hard is that for us men? We'll just talk about men for a second. I think we have a little harder at times, maybe. I mean, you coach women, men and women, so do I. I think they have their kind of particular bents on things that they struggle with, but I know for us men, those are hard things to listen to.
Yeah. I mean, um, when you say to sit in it, yeah, I guess I did. It was about 7 years ago when all that
Mhm.
happened. And I still find myself learning lessons today about myself. And I think the journey I've been in, so it didn't happen. Number one, it didn't happen quickly.
Mm,
That's why I love the title of your podcast, The Next Step, right? Because all life is there's no, people aren't problems to fix.
yeah.
Life is not a something to accomplish. It's a journey we're on, and
Mhm.
the work that I did was the hardest thing I ever did in my life
Mm,
because I had to put a mirror up to myself and really look at myself. And the thing was, I was lying to others and I was lying to myself. The only difference was I didn't know I was lying to myself, but others could see it in me.
mm,
Given enough time and enough experiences with me, Breck, there was a time in my life when I was so driven. This is what, like, I'm fascinated by leaders, right? Because we get driven about, like, there's a goal, there's an accomplishment, there's steps to get there. I was so driven on my goal and such a good reader of people that I would meet someone, Breck, and I'm ashamed to say this, but I'm just saying this in case someone in your audience resonates with them. Man, I within 30 seconds could determine if you had value to me, and that was, could you help me accomplish my goal more efficiently or not?
wow.
And and if you did, man, oof, I would lay it on thick, but not so thick you would know, like,
Yeah.
but I would become a chameleon to get what I needed out of you. And if
Mm,
you didn't, man, you were dead to me. And Breck, like, I look back, I didn't know it at the time. I mean, I knew it, but didn't know it. And the arrogance, that's just pure arrogance to basically play God, right?
mhm.
Which was what I was doing. And I went through this program called Celebrate Recovery, which is it's a 12-step program, but instead of it being for alcohol or like Alcoholics Anonymous or NA for narcotics, just sin in general. And but you name what your sin is, right? When you go to these meetings, you say, I'm Nick, and I would say, my name is Nick. I'm addicted to pride. And what's pride? Pride is one of two things: either wondering if there's a God or knowing that there isn't one and believing you are.
Mhm, mhm,
And that's what I was doing with other people. Is I
mhm.
had this cosmic chessboard in which I needed to accomplish my goal. And if I met you, I would put you on a piece of my chessboard.
Oh wow.
And 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 then you could move if I gave you permission to, but if you didn't, you had to stay where you were, right? And so in that process, when you go through a 12-step program, step 4 is you do what's called a moral inventory. And you write down broken relationships, right? You write down the name of the person, you write down the mindset, which is the expectation of that relationship. You write down in the third column your emotions, or how did you feel when that expectation wasn't met? And then you write down your action. Well, Brett, I still am, and you still have to name it. You never, by the way, you'll never meet an alcoholic who says, I used to be an alcoholic. They say I'm an alcoholic, been sober for 10 years, right? Like there's this acknowledgement of, like, this is
Right.
still in me, but I have to wake up today and go do this. And so um and I'm a manipulator that's been sober from manipulation for 5, 6, 7 years now. But,
Mm,
like, in that moment, I wrote down 5, 6, 7 people that had screwed me over, Brett. Like, that I was gonna, like, even in this game, in this moment, like, write down. And what I recognized in that process was there were several of there that I had put on a piece of my chessboard, and they didn't like being my pawn.
mm,
as they shouldn't, because they had agency and they have their own
Right.
way of going about life. And they would get off the chessboard and that relationship would break. And I attributed that to them doing something wrong by me. And what I had to realize was like, no, I was trying to play God and I don't have a right to anybody else's life.
Yeah.
And so I
Wow.
see this in leaders. And I see, and as leaders, it's easy, right? We pay people. That's the simplest way. I give you money, you do the job. Like
Yeah.
that's the job that's what we have to do. And I see this in leaders as we have this stress and the goal and our identities are tied up around it. And so, um, boy, it's such a fun experience. I shouldn't say fun. It's such a rewarding experience to be able to help people remove the cataracts and the blinders and go, okay, let's walk through this together and figure out how we got to this spot. Boy, then you get to see transformation happen. And there's nothing better than this world, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I know a great influencer in your life and certainly in mine is John Townsend.
Hmm.
And, I've said it on here before and I'll probably say it many times. He right out of the gate, he told us, he said, what I found to be the greatest need of leaders is to need. And he said that, and then which has continues to cause me to think about like my own journey of being leading with vulnerability, with need that I can't do this alone. I start to feel like as a leader, like, man, I've got to really do this. I really got to do that. There are certain things we have to do, but when I start to feel that, I'm like, okay, am I leaning into me or am I leaning into Jesus? Am I leaning into the people, the team, the friends around me? Uh,
Yeah.
the, the
And that's the rub, right? Because we all
yeah,
have these skill sets. We have these
yes,
like God-given gifts we're supposed to use towards the goal and the calling he's put on our life, and also recognize where we stop and he begins.
yeah,
And that's the art and the nuance and the continue. This is the journey we're on, man, until
mhm,
our last breath. There is no arrival point. There is no
yeah.
like, okay, done, check that
There's no
box. It's like
destination. There's no leadership destination where you know,
it's
I
it's showing up fully and as best as you can every single day, recognizing that there's nothing you can do about yesterday. There's very little you can do about tomorrow, but what you can do is in this moment be the best at what you're called to do. And that could be selling a company,
mhm,
right? That could be taking a company public. That could be hiring a person. That could be firing a person. That could be talking kindly to the guy who's washing your car.
mhm,
They all have the same potential weight as far as having an impact on them. And that curiosity, man, curiosity is the I, I'm sure there are other traits that are up there, but curiosity is one of the top five for me
it's
to have as a
I
leader.
agree. It's in my top three uh to pursue radical curiosity.
Mhm.
Um, you had mentioned this, and and Dr. Townsend, he often would say this, and I'm sure you would echo this, is that the number one expert, if there's to be an expert on anyone or anything, we ought to be the expert on ourselves. Like to stay curious about who I am, how I'm showing up. Am I rooted? Right? Am I grounded? Am I just working in it? Is it transactional? Am I just working on the fruit or am I doing the root work?
Yeah.
Like stay because who you are today certainly isn't the person you were 7 years ago,
Yeah.
right? And being curious about and understanding ourselves. How important is it when you're talking and investing in these leaders, where does self-awareness and all of that kind of come into? Like, how important is all of that?
You hear about self-awareness for the leader or for myself
Yes.
in that process?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's incredibly important. I mean, at the end of the day, I love doing. I do a when I do a 360 review on a leader. I do it. I think it's fairly unique, but I interview. Uh, people have known him for years, people have known him for decades, people brand new employees, friends, like a whole smorgasbord of people. And I ask them all the interviews I do. I ask them the exact same questions,
Mm,
and then I document. I type out their answers, but I do not say so and so Joe said this about you or Sally said this about you.
yeah.
And the reason I do it that way is because every single time I've done that, there's been a theme of two or three things that have come out from people who knew you from 20 years ago versus 2 years ago versus they're getting a paycheck from you versus they're your neighbor, right? Like there becomes these themes. And typically the themes that come out are things around that we have spent an inordinate amount of time trying to coerce, trying to finesse, trying to hide, trying to pretend doesn't exist. And all of these people see the exact same thing in you.
Mm,
And so it's one thing for me to see that and say, hey, this is what I see in you. That's one opinion. But when you get back a document with, 6, 7, 8 page document, and you see all these people saying this about you, that's a hard thing to do. And yet it's the thing that's necessary. Why? If everybody's seeing that, it means, in my opinion, it means that you've worked so hard to like hide this part of you, but you've
mm,
still done a really bad job of it.
yeah.
And so then it begs the question, like, why is that so important for you that everybody sees this
Mm,
in you? And why have you
oh.
done such a bad job? And the answer is because you're just not near as slick as you think you are. And you can't hide from God, man. He's gonna,
Oof.
like, the truth is, and you can't hide from God, you can't hide from truth, and all truth is God's truth.
Mm,
And so, I just was working with someone recently, and the 360 came back, and this guy's incredibly successful. He's very, like, you'd want him to be your neighbor or your dad or your friend or your boss. Like, this guy's a good dude. And the majority of the people said, I feel like I'm getting 90% of the story. I feel like there's something I'm not getting out of him.
mm,
I feel like I feel like he's holding back. I feel like and the answer is he is holding back. And the reason he's holding back is because he's such a kind person that he doesn't want to lay on the full weight of the burden that he's dealing with. And what we're working through right now is he thinks he's helping them because he's taking the burden away. And really, he's really doing is being mean to them because he's saying, I don't believe you can handle
mm,
who I am and what's going on in my life. He's robbing them of the agency.
mm.
I've got a buddy up here. We go skiing in the backcountry, and I got a good dear friend of mine who's he's from the South, so he's super nice, and he's always like, no, I don't want. So one time we were out skiing, and we go way in the backcountry, and it's like 30 minutes to get back to the truck to pick him up on the snowmobile to get back out to the backcountry, and he couldn't make it when we were going out, and he's like, I can come out 2 hours later, but don't worry about it. I don't want you guys to have to do that or whatever. And I grabbed him later on. I was like, hey man, stop doing that. And he said, stop doing what? And I said, stop robbing me of my agency. I'm a grown ass man, and I can determine if I want to ride a snowmobile 30 minutes to pick you up. I have no problem telling you I don't want to,
Yeah.
but don't rob me of the joy of wanting to come pick up my friend
Yeah.
on a snowmobile and ride through the country. Like you're robbing me. You think I don't. It's like, I don't mean that way. It's like, I know you don't mean that way, but
Mm,
that's the truth of the matter. And so, these are like little principles you see in people and you start to pick up and you get to spend time with them. And you get to, I start at the very beginning, man. Tell me where you were born. Tell me
mm,
what that was like. What was your family like? How was that? And we work through, because I
mm.
firmly believe 90% of the hangups that we have started before we were 18.
Oh yeah.
You know, right? We survive as human beings. We do one thing impeccably. We survive.
Mm,
But that's no way to live, man. And
yeah.
so when we survive, we create a new neural pathway and a new belief. I can't trust people. People are going to leave me. I'm never going to have enough. Like, whatever that lie is that we tell ourselves, all of which those are all mine. By the way, I'm just confessing. Like, I feel like no one's going to see this, right, Brek? It's just you and me, right? I'm just confessing to you like you're my priest. Um, and then when you start to name that and go, is that true? Like, does everybody abandon you? Did your dad abandon me? Yeah, my dad abandoned me. Absolutely. Has everybody abandoned you? No, that's not true. But when I have you and I in the hot tub we had like a very direct conversation. And the old me would have had that conversation and thought, oh, there's one more person I can't trust in my life. The new me was like, oh, this guy loves me because I said something he doesn't agree with, and he loves me enough to tell me the truth of what he believes, and I love him enough to tell him what I think the truth is, and we, like our relationships grown out of that. But like when
Yeah.
I believe friction comes abandonment. Oof, I don't want to have friction with anybody, and then no one knows who I am.
Oh,
And
wow.
so
Yeah.
that's one small example in my own life. But everybody I get to work with, I get to like, it's like this giant puzzle of like, okay, man, tell me more. What's going on? And that curiosity is such a big aspect of leadership,
Yeah.
because if your people aren't doing what you want them to do, it's your fault. Hard stop. And your system is perfectly designed to get the results that it's getting. So if you're
Mhm.
not getting the results you want, it's because your system's broken.
Yeah.
So what's going on in your system, and how are you? What's going on with your people that you're not treating the right way, or you're not getting the right results out of?
Nick, that's so good. Do you ever come up when somebody's talking to you, get a new leader, somebody's, whether you've been coaching them for a while, and they go, man, I've got an issue with this person, and they start to kind of go into the weeds about all of that, and you're listening to what the drama in the fruit tree, the leaves and the branches, and it's waving, it's talking about it. Um, how often do you, and this is a script, I'm just asking from one coach to another, how often do you redirect that conversation from that person that they're talking about back to themselves, to that?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I think the posture I take with them, like I look at I think I have two jobs.
Yeah.
There's nothing I'm going to tell my clients that they will not eventually figure out by themselves,
Mm,
right? Every great coach is, it's not like Michael Jordan couldn't have figured out how to do what he did, or Tiger Woods, but they got there a lot more efficiently because they
yeah.
had the right coaches, right? And so I think my job is twofold. My job is to be a professional listener, and that means hearing everything they're saying, and more importantly, hearing what they're not saying.
Mm,
People are constantly showing you who they are, and sometimes they even use words, right? And so that's the narrative and the story that we've created around that. And then the second thing is to have the greatest library known to man of tools to bring to bear to that particular situation. That's it. That's all I do. I
mm,
listen professionally, I diagnose precisely, and I prescribe intentionally.
mm.
And so in your situation, in that scenario that you were asking about, like I, I, I don't. Yeah, I guess that happens quite a bit. I think the hard part is like the role we play as coaches is, I'm not a life coach. Like
Yeah.
people call themselves, I don't even know what a life coach is. I'm sure they're great. I don't know what they are.
Right.
I charge a lot of money for my services
Yeah.
because the people who I serve make a ton of money off of me. I guarantee them a 10-to-1 ROI. Otherwise, don't pay me, right? Like, so I'm ostensibly, I got to go help them figure out the business. And if the
Yeah.
leaves are waving and the fruit isn't ripe and those type of things that are, or is too ripe, then we got to go address that
Mm-hmm.
first and foremost. Jesus, right? Before he taught anybody, he fed them. So I want to go like fix their business first. And so like if there's a person in there
Yeah.
that's disrupting the company, yeah, we
Right.
might go address that.
Yeah.
But in doing that, then now I've gained trust.
Mm-hmm.
Now I've gained a worthiness for them to listen to me, and I can say, hey, that person was poisonous to your organization. That person did need to let go. That person needed to be returned to the community. Let's also look at your part in that role, and the role, and what got to that point. Was it 100% them? No, the answer is never 100% them.
Yeah.
So that's a long-winded way to answer your question.
That's good.
But I think it's twofold, right? Which is, one is like pragmatically, I want my clients to feel like, as I know you do as well, like, hey, the money they're spending is money well spent.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes that comes from like dealing with employees and those issues. Um, and then we come back to like, okay, but let's also look at the stuff inside of you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one of the things we haven't mentioned it though is that you're an author. You wrote a couple years back, wrote a book, the title "The Good Entrepreneur."
Yeah.
Man, what is I would encourage everybody to go out and get that. It's great. It's got some really good insight for entrepreneurs and for just leaders in general. And so, what was kind of the reason why you thought you needed to write a book, uh,
Yeah.
and what were some of the key kind of takeaways that you wanted to make sure people got from the time they spent from reading it?
Yeah. Well, those are two good questions. The answer to your first question about why I wrote it, and I didn't know this at the time, but this is why I wrote it. I don't know what I think until I write something down.
Mm,
Writing is the clearest way to understand what you think. And so it forced me, you and I can get on here and we could talk for hours. We could have a 3 hour podcast
yeah.
and we're interesting. We could go back and forth and whatnot. But like to really be precise, I have to write it down and think about it. And it's
Mm,
the highest level of intellect is to write, in my opinion. So I didn't know it at the time, but I was really defining what I believed. I was codifying these lessons I had learned as being an entrepreneur. um, our mutual friend, Don Miller, who's a best-selling author, said he'd never written a book. This is, I'm sure he does now, but when I talked to him, he said, "I'd never written a book that I knew what the book was going to be about until it was two-thirds done." Like writing a book is a journey you go on. You think
yeah.
it's one thing, and it's something else. And
Yeah.
so, what do I hope people take away from it? Two things. One is entrepreneur is a French word, and it means the bearer of risk.
Mm,
I think we've for far too long created a much too narrow definition of what an entrepreneur is.
mm,
School teachers are entrepreneurs, lawyers are entrepreneurs, doctors are entrepreneurs, managers are anybody who's bearing risk is an entrepreneur. And so I wanted to number one bring that attention to like you are an actual and if you are, congratulations, because I think entrepreneurship is the single greatest invention of mankind. I'll
mm,
never forget. I was working at EDS, my first job, and a buddy of mine came and said, "We're starting this company. Do you want to come join?" And I was like, "Yes, please get me out of my cube. I can't stand one more day here." Right? Yes, I need. So we started this company, and 3 years later, we sold that thing for $35 million. Now I had a very, 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 very small piece of that, but like it blew my mind that these guys had an idea
wow. Yeah.
and they worked their butts off for 3 years and made that much money. Like this, I like out of nothing. And all the medicine we take, the TV that's on behind you, like all it took somebody to go, "Hey, I have an idea and I think this might work and I'm going to take the risk to go do that."
Yeah.
It's an incredible entrepreneurship is an incredible journey for people to go on to do the best bet in the world, which is to bet on themselves.
Mm,
Um, and then secondarily, it's a true story. Like the first 10 chapters are like building a business, but then chapters 11 and 12 are coming to reconciliation that once you hit all your goals, you've exceeded all your goals and you feel more empty than you ever have before. What do you do then?
oh wow.
And 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 I wanted to invite people in on that journey because it should be simple, but it's never easy. And it's
Mm.
an arduous, hard journey. And that's okay in that process. So that was why I wrote the book, and boy, it was a great experience, and I think I got a few more in me. I really enjoyed writing it. Really hard, but really enjoyed it.
Uh Man, so good, Nick. I know that that you're a big reader. What are you reading these days?
Man, I always have like 6 or 7 books going at a time.
Yeah.
I'm writing a book right now called American American buffalo or American bison. It's the history of bison buffalo in America. We used to have millions of buffalo. We had so many buffaloes on the Western Plains that when they would come west, they wouldn't even bring food with them. They just knew these buffaloes they would not run away. You could just go shoot them, and you'd have meat for months, right? And we had millions and millions, and then we almost made them go extinct.
Mm,
They're these beautiful, beautiful animals. So the author tells a story about buffaloes and bisons in America, and then he also kind of layers it in him doing a hunting trip to Alaska to go hunt a bison. I love that. I'm reading a book right now, kind of kind of esoteric and boring, but I really like it. Called Mellon versus Churchill, or Churchill versus Mellon, and it's the story post World War II. America had loaned a bunch of money to Britain. Britain had loaned a bunch of money to other Western European countries. And there was this negotiation going on in which Britain was trying to get the US to forgive the debts. And basically said, like, if you forgive our debts, we'll forgive the debts of everybody else. And Mellon was the head of the Federal Reserve, and there was this like highest level negotiation. Um, I love a good history book because I think history is the greatest antidote to anxiety there is.
Mm.
Uh, um, when you think about the stakes of that, like that one decision that I didn't even know that existed
Right.
before I picked this up. But like, had that gone wrong, the world we live in would look very differently now. And so when I get anxious about what's going on in politics, or get anxious about what's going on today, I look back at history and go, oh, this is no big deal. Like I read the history of Carthage recently, which is called "Carthage Must Be Destroyed." Carthage was this little island in this little area in northern Africa that was basically the thorn in the side of the Roman Empire, and they were getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And they for years, dozens of years, maybe a century, I don't know, they were like a rival to Rome. And so it's this Carthage must be destroyed because it was like the only rival Rome had. They ended up getting rid of them, cut to the end, by salting their fields. They put salt in their fields and basically destroyed their crops. They couldn't feed their people. It's finally, after all the war and people dying, it's how they finally won. But you read that and go, man, for thousands of years, people have been warring,
Yeah.
and you wake up and you're like, man, you read the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, or you pick it up and you're like, the world's going to hell in a handbasket. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
compared to that, like, yeah, I don't know. Um, Practicing the Way is a book by John Mark Comer, which he talks about building a trellis of 9 sacred practices,
Mm.
spiritual practices, that I'm doing a study with some guys up here that's blowing my mind.
Mm.
Those are some of the books I'm reading right now.
What's out of that right there for leaders? Just out of that last book there, we've talked a little bit about it when we were up in Colorado. Like, what's a takeaway? What's a discipline or a takeaway that you've discovered that you maybe didn't know, or maybe you just didn't fully like step into through that journey of that book with those
Of
guys?
Practicing the Way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The premise is, it's a Christian book, and the premise is that we have a role to play as Christians in order to have a relationship with God, but God also has a role to play. And so we can't do it all ourselves. We can't save ourselves. We can't have the knowledge some of the knowledge we have without God intervening upon us. And so if that's true, and our job is not to finalize that process, our job really is to create, he uses this phrase, and I think it's so great, to have a posture of being willing to be there when that happens. And so Christians throughout history have had 9 sacred practices: prayer, scripture, Sabbath, giving, evangelism, community, right? These are 9 practices, some of which are practiced daily, some are weekly, monthly, quarterly, but they're practices that are designed to do one thing, which is to have a posture to be ready to hear God when he speaks to you.
Wow.
And so like when you go through the prayer practice, right? Like one of the things I'm learning is just to ask over and over again, God, what do you have for me? God, what do you have for me? God, what do you have for me? I'll sit there in my chair with a cup of coffee for 15 minutes, just asking that over and over again. Not
Mm.
once has he not given me something very, very specific, often seemingly trivial, to say,
Wow.
on this day, here's what I want you to go do.
Mm.
And I'll go do that, and I'll call that friend, or I'll have that conversation with my son, or I'll change something about my life. And like the rewards are 100-fold.
Mm.
And so, it's this posture of how do I spend my days, right? If you're lucky, you're gonna get 30,000 days on this earth. How am I going to spend those 30,000 days? How am I going to spend tomorrow? Like, what
Yeah.
does that look like tomorrow? And how am I going to wake up in the morning and get in that process? So that's the biggest thing for me. And because I think building a proper system solves a lot of problems.
Hmm.
And so the system for me is wake up, make a great cup of coffee with my espresso, make a nice, great Americano with my espresso machine, sit in my Eames chair, look at this mountain behind me,
Yeah.
close my eyes, read some scripture, pray, journal, like,
Mm,
and boy, that boy, everything after that becomes infinitely easier for me on that day.
mm. That's so good. Wow.
Yeah.
Love that. Nick, man, what would be what's I just kind of a this is kind of a bonus round. I always ask a few of these questions. Um, what's a failure? I put that in quotes because I know what your answer will be to a failure. What's a
Well, I got many.
failure?
I got many of them, Breck.
What's a
Oh,
failure that you're now grateful for?
hmm. Man. So that business. So the other two businesses I was not the founder of. I was early on, but not the founder of. But this one I was a co-founder of, and it was my idea. It was an airline. We started an airline using private planes. It grew very, very rapidly, and we were generating a lot of money very quickly. And I was thankful for that. But when my wife came to me and said, "Hey, I like you, but I don't love you," or "I love you, but I don't like you," man, we were on. In my opinion, we were in the first quarter of a long game.
Hmm.
Like this was, yes, we'd hit this, but we were going down this path. And, um, she said to me, I'll never forget it because she said something to me that, and this was my failure that just made me so mad. She said, "Nick, what if my name of my airline was named Rise?" She said, "Nick, what if Rise is the thing before the thing?" And I was so mad, Breck, because like, how do you top starting growing an airline? Like that's like wild, right? Like, and And I was like, "You have no idea what you're saying, woman. Like, you're crazy. Like, there's never going to be anything more than this for me, you know?" And I was thankful we built a great business, and another company wanted it, so they acquired it, which was incredible. But I look back on that, man, 7 years ago, her saying that, and she was 100% right. Like, I was a good entrepreneur. I'm a great coach,
Hmm.
and and that was the thing before the thing. And so one of my biggest failures was like having, our marriage therapist says, you can get past a lot in a marriage, but animosity and apathy are the two A's that like they will ruin a marriage. And I had a lot of animosity towards my wife, confessing
Hmm.
to you about that. And that was a huge failure on my part. And Breck, she was 1,000% right. And that was one of those moments of like, she told me the truth
Yeah.
and I couldn't see it.
Wow.
And that was a that's one of my I got 100 failures I can go through, but that's one I think about right now where I go, man, I'm just thankful for her to have the courage to stand up to me,
Yeah.
who can sometimes be a bull and just say, damn the torpedoes, like I'm gonna tell you the truth. And she was right about it. That was a failure of mine to not see that. And
Wow.
it took me, and by the way, it wasn't like one day, like it
Yeah.
took me a
Yeah. Oh,
year, 2 years.
I'm sure.
It was
Yeah.
a long time of
Yeah.
coming.
Yeah. Well, it's an encouragement to leaders as maybe you're in a similar scenario like that, and man, you're hurting. You're like, what could be next? And just to hear your story about like, hey, where you're sitting now, you know, what was good, man, now it's great. So
Yeah.
I love that. So here's a fun one. I always ask, what would be your leadership walk up song? Your ladies and gentlemen, to the stage, Nick Kennedy. What
Oh,
song you got
wow.
blaring, pumping to get the crowd going?
Uh, oh gosh. I'd probably say Not Like Us by Kendrick Lamar.
I love it. There you go. I
I'm a
love it.
big
I know you're a
I
big
love
music fan, so I knew
I
you'd be
love
able to pull something out.
I love rap, so I'd probably pick a rap song. I'm ironically playing. I'm 48. I'm the oldest guy on my softball team, but we've got softball playoffs, and I'm the curator. I play softball up here in Steamboat on Monday nights, and I'm the curator of our walk up music. So I have an entire playlist I can send to your listeners
I
if they
love
want
it.
some good pump up songs.
That's so good, man. Hey, last thing, what would you say to a leader who feels stuck, uncertain, maybe in where they are in their leadership role? What would be a great takeaway for them to take their next best step?
I'd say two things. Number one, go get lost in the mountains for 2 nights by yourself. Go spend time by yourself.
Hmm.
Quiet the noise.
Hmm.
Uh, and then two, the second thing I'd say is just because you can doesn't mean you should. There's a
Hmm.
very, very big difference between can and should. And most leaders um, have the resources to go do whatever they want to go do. And that oftentimes, this the quote unquote success they find because they can do something is often overshadowed by what they should have chosen to spend their time on. We've got limited time on this earth.
Hmm.
And you cannot do everything. Just
Yeah.
because you can doesn't mean you should.
Hmm. Man, that's great. Nick, man, thank you for taking the time to hang out with me today. And hey, if you're new to listening to your Next Best Step podcast, man, I hope you give us a like or subscribe, share it with somebody. And Nick, man, can't wait to come up and visit you up there and see all that for real. And for listeners who are listening, man, have a great week. And we hope that you will take your next best step in your relationships and owning your own stuff and just kind of making this journey one that's real, that people will love to be a part of. And so thanks for coming, being a part of it.
Thanks, Brek.